Welcome to your pre-market prep on 123 Friday. Let's try to close this week out pretty strong. So let's just jump right into a 1 hour chart. Here we're going to be looking at NQ on the 1 hour. So let's start things out by looking. We have a 4 hour trend line at the bottom of the screen here. This green line right here will be your 4 hour trend line. And then we got us this will work as a 1 hour trend line, this green line. And this overhead red line is a 1 hour line. You can see we're closing in here on the triangle. They're going to have to make a decision. Are we going to bust out and continue up? Or are we going to bust down and continue lower? You can see here we have a huge imbalance zone right here to the downside. And then in the middle of that zone is the S2 pivot at 361. You know, we're just below the golden pivot right now. The golden pivot is at 617. You can see right here we got up into this area right here, got a hard rejection, tried to test that area again, didn't get there, tried to test it again. It busted through the 1 hour trend line barely, like it swept it yesterday and then dropped. And so you got to think, you know, if we get back up into this area again, right in here, first reaction short on this trend line again. If we get up here, you know, they just can't get the force behind it to keep pushing it higher. Let's say that I would be looking for them to drain this off since it's Friday, but let's say that they got the force behind them to drive this up. You have to think we got to get through this trend line here, and then as soon as you do, you got the R1 pivot, which is at 751. Now what you got to think though, what if they try to fake you out, sweep this trend line, tag that pivot, and if they do that, then they're going to sweep this high right here barely. So it's a spot on the chart to think, you know, don't chase, don't get emotional, but be aware that there's a good chance that they're going to try to trap people right here in this area from, say, they may try to trap people from 730 to 750 because they try to pierce through this line, pierce through the high to the left, tag the pivot, maybe even try to sweep a little higher because they got the imbalance zone here just to turn around and slam it back the other way. That's a spot on the chart that I would be careful with. Now say they get up here and they break it, consolidate. We got this imbalance zone that needs to be filled from 763 to 800, and there's a precision entry zone inside that box. And then of course this bright red box, you know, is a line in the sand, I think, to the top side. Even if they could break this trend line, I just don't see them getting through that box today. They could though. You never know. If they do, you got that 4 hour trend line up there. But you have all this to the left over here, all this consolidation in this area. So with all these drops. So I mean, even if they got through the red box, you would be expecting a short on this 4 hour trend line. That'd be right in line with all the consolidation it did to the left of the chart. So now let's say that they decide to take this to the downside. Remember, we're right under the golden pivot right now. You know, we got precision entries from about 545 to 555, and then we got about 490 to 500. It's got the S1 pivot in it at 495. We got 450 to 60, right in there. Now, if we get through all three of these precision entry zones, say today, and the market opens and they try to drag this down, you got to play these with very carefully, because if they pierce through this first one, like it's not even a zone to play, then you need to think that you might have a better chance here, because this one pivot is at 495, 500 being a whole number. You're usually going to find something. So this whole area should be a good one. Like if they pierce through this one, but they could pierce through that one. And then if they pierce through this one, I would be looking for them to fill this zone right here, this imbalance zone, and that's like 420 to 300 practically, with the S2 pivot sitting right around the middle of it. So that's something to be looking at. And if they did that, if they went through all three of these with some speed, and say could fill half of this imbalance down to the S2, and it was straight down, that S2 will probably give you somewhere between a 50 and 100 point move on a bounce. Just depends on how they get there. And then let's say that they got through that imbalance zone. Down here, you got a precision entry zone from 240 to 250. And that would be a kind of a line in the sand. If they got there with some speed, I would think that if they could pierce all this to the downside, you would definitely get a bounce over 100 points or better out of that box right there. Not saying it would keep going, but I think you'd get a really good bounce. And then you might get some more downside. Just some options to throw out there on the table on what we might have going on. Now we're going to hop over to gold. Take a look at some things. Look at how strong it's been. So this is gold on the 1 hour. Down here on the bottom of the screen, we got a 4-hour trend line. Let's see if I can get the cursor. We got the 4-hour trend line down here. We got a 1-hour trend line here. Now, you see we got some bullish and balance zones. We got one way down here around the 600 mark where we got a little gap up there when it opened up. We got another one right in here, and then we got one up here just under the golden pivot, and then we got an all-time high up here is the purple line. So here's what if gold, you almost got to think they're going to try to tag 5,000 before they turn this around and try to bring it too far down. But let's say that they try to draw this back to the downside. That golden pivot right there at 885, that's going to be a really strong bounce area. And I'm going to tell you it's because this was an all-time high right where that pivot was, and it'd be like them retesting that all-time high structure. You see what I'm saying? If they drag this down, look to the left, and that was a previous all-time high in here. So that golden pivot there being in line with that 1-hour trend line, I'm going to be looking for that setup today myself in gold, and because I'd be very interested in playing that. And I don't really, it's hard to talk about any downside past that, but say they do, they may try to fill this imbalance. Say they sweep or wick down real hard, gold's good for that. That imbalance is from like 870 to, let's say, 850. So I'd be looking for maybe them to fill that. But I couldn't see them getting past that S1 pivot there. If they do pull us to the downside, I think that's all we would get was down to the S1 if we could even get there. Although it's Friday, you never know, news comes out. You really never know what the case might be. You just got to be prepared to trade the market, what the market gives you. To the upside, there really ain't a whole lot we can discuss there other than, 5,000. That R1 pivot is at 997. So I would be thinking that whole number. You got to be thinking that they're going to be trying to get there just so that they can tag it. They might sweep it, so you want to be careful. I would not be trying to find the top in gold. You got to be careful there. You're going to have to let gold play out. You could probably try to play first reaction moves, like a first reaction short at the R1, but I would not be trying to guess the top. What if gold gets to 5, passes 5, and they like it, and it just jumps all the way up here to this R2 pivot, which is at 56. It's a very good possibility with gold. What you got to pay attention to real close is the structure on gold, and think, maybe you do play the first reaction and keep your wrist tight. Maybe you sit back and wait and see how it reacts, and then look for the structure level below it to see what happens. I'd be willing to know that this golden pivot lining up with this 1 hour trend line here is a really nice play. First reaction, even if it decides it wants to turn and keep going down, but then that imbalance zone, it's just until gold gets down here and breaks, this low right here, which is around 755 or so. Until they get down here and break that low, that's when you might be looking for a heavier size short to the downside. Because then, you might get some bounces there, but if you can get past that low, you're more likely going to fill this imbalance and get down here and fill this one where it gapped up. I don't know if we'll see that without it tagging 5,000 first. We might. Today might open up and surprise us. So let's jump down here on the 15-minute real quick and take a look at gold. Tighten up that trend line a little bit to them wicks anytime you go down to lower time frame. So right around as the market opens today, that golden pivot will be over here on this trend line. Yeah, about right here where my crosshair is at is 8:30. So that's when the bell's going to ring for me, and it'll be right there on it. So I'll definitely be watching that. It's a good play. We're going to hop back over real quick on NQ on the 15-minute. I don't think we went down to the 15. See, we're getting tight in here. Right now we're looking at a range of 566 to 721 to make a decision on which way we're going to go, is pretty much what we're looking at. So I would be getting prepared for a move one way or another. I say they're going to pull it down today since it's Friday. But you never know. They may drive it up a while. Just be prepared to trade what they give us. And stay sharp. Stay patient. And stay green. Finish the week out strong. And I will see you guys in Discord. Have a great trading day.